the vertical plane versus the horizontal plane where their phone was. Do you notice anything? Rhetorical question, because I'm going to show you. Maybe you're working in Looker or Tableau or Excel, and in those cases, it's like sheets and tabs. It's all kind of the same idea. But ultimately, the space can become very cluttered quickly. If you're working in a canvas, right? If you're working in Count, there are stickies, there are controls, there's code cells, there's shapes and comments. Like, there's a lot of stuff, and it can get really messy pretty quickly. Especially if you hit Shift 1 and you see everything from the very top, from the bird's eye, it can get cluttered. So, the calm after the brainstorm, so to speak, can bring clarity, but only once you actually find it and isolate it. So by drawing focus, operational clarity goes up and time wasted hand tooling and finding answers goes down. So to help us understand focus, let's use this data set about focus. So this is data that measures the position of a number of students' faces and hands, and of course, because they can't help themselves, phones, while they're being prompted to do a task. It is pretty depressing, but hey, lovely glowing rectangles in our pockets capable of so much. It's hard not to look at them all the time, even when you're basically being tested on your ability not to. Regardless, let's look at sub-principle number 1. So this one's extraction. So to draw focus, you just want to show the important stuff. Like, think about it like visual brevity. You kind of have to determine what matters most while still communicating what's critical. Of course, in the data world, you don't want to omit things that could sacrifice the integrity of what you're showing, but oftentimes less can be more, especially when you're collaborating across teams. I think to take a page out of the advertising world's playbook is good in this case. So some of the best creative directors in the world begin with just like a small box. And this is usually a proxy for like a magazine ad or a billboard, but the same principles can apply, right? Using a limited space, pixels, words, data, whatever, how can I completely convey, in their case, the product, for us, the insight or the question at hand or whatever it may be? So how can we apply that philosophy in our case? Maybe something as simple as this. One of these things is not like the others. Some copy, a circle, and limited rows of our data set that actually illustrate the point we're going to make moving forward. That subject's head direction, they're leaning forward, which means that maybe they're paying more attention because their phone is not present. Interesting. The second sub-principle, copy and callouts. So let's say we want to determine which head position correlates with student attentiveness. We've already alluded to this a little bit. The data features dimensions like label and position. And it's not always super clear what that means. Just for your awareness, a label of 1 is inattentive and 0 is attentive, which is a little counterintuitive. But we can make that more intuitive. We can make this easier to understand by drawing focus to the things that matter and, of course, adjusting things like color and scale. So we'll see this in later principles, but it's worth noting that like our brains find familiarity first. It's just what they do. So language is going to be more familiar to the majority of people than shapes. Like, I know a lot of us are visual learners, but it's kind of true, especially in our world, that they might look toward leaning forward, learning more. That's kind of quirky, but you get the idea. They might be drawn more to copy, at least initially, before, say, shapes. Additionally, callouts like this one on the top right make it really easy, almost too easy to make sense of this data. So in addition to the x-axis sort of like helpful attentive markers to make more sense of it, there's a description happening at the top right. That way, if a colleague like passively comes in here and looks at this stuff, they will be able to decipher what they're looking at. And more importantly, they'll get to understanding it faster. The last one is dimensionality. Pretty simple. You can use highlights over top, drop shadows under, you can use emoji, whatever it takes, right? In a flat world, in business intelligence, everything is so 2D. So we can use dimension in Count and maybe other tools to create this dimensionality, which does bring your attention to it, right? So for example, let's take this graphic showing where phones were detected among students who used one. This chart mimics students' video frames, and the x-axis is where their phone was, if there was one detected, and the y, the vertical plane versus the horizontal plane where their phone was. Do you notice anything? Rhetorical question, because I'm going to show you. So it's pretty clear, like this confirms that more people are right-handed than left, but it's kind kind of interesting. Like you start to see maybe there are folks looking down at their phones that they think are out of frame, but are actually in frame. Some people might be taking selfies over here. Some people are literally covering their face, like from the camera, which is pretty brazen if you ask me. But ultimately what I'm showing here is that I'm layering images on and annotations. It is a great way to draw attention to the things that matter. Granted, this one's like kind of hyperbolic and silly, but hopefully that communicates the right idea. Couple pro tips here. These are mostly for count. Don't hesitate to hide cells. Very good idea to hide cells that, again, you don't want to keep things from people, but for those that maybe don't need to see the deep analysis or your note taking or whatever, it cleans up the canvas and then can help you maintain focus. And then you can right click to get to this, but layering is just a matter of using, again, in the right click tool set menu, or using brackets and command bracket to send things forward and back.